Well, good afternoon, everyone. Just wait a couple of more minutes before 2 o'clock happens, so we'll just wait for a few more people to arrive. Great. Well, welcome to our webinar on MPAC Public Records Residential. I was talking like Elmer Fudd there for a second. It's MPAC Public Records Residential. And it's 2 o'clock. We're going to begin. Let me introduce myself. My name is David. I'll be your instructor this afternoon. I'm also the Senior Manager of Professional Development at TREB. So as you can see on my screen here, everybody's going to get a copy of this webinar sent to them in about 2 days, right? Okay, let me get in here, and this is going to be a very, very, very brief PowerPoint. I always put this slide at the beginning of my webinars because, with so many people working from home still, and your children still doing their schoolwork perhaps from home, bandwidth is at a premium, both on your end and on mine. So my voice might crackle a little bit or go out, but it shouldn't take too long. I mean, it should be very, very brief. If it's for a long time and the screen actually freezes, I'll be talking almost consistently and continually throughout this hour together today. So if I'm not talking, something's gone wrong. Close your browser down and come back in through the link, the invitation link that you got when you registered, and that should solve the problem. So what are we looking at today? Well, first of all, we're to find public records. And it has multiple names, by the way. Some people call it MPAC, some people call it public records, some people call it property line. Its official name is property line, but people refer to it through multiple names. We're going to see where you find it. Then we're going to deal with the viewports, which are different windows. There are 5 of them that allow you to see different pieces of information, different types of information for each property that you search in property line. We're going to be doing a search by address. We're going to also do a sort of a version of that by searching by condos. Because when you search by an address of a condo, of course, you're going to get all the units in the building, and you're only going to see about 100 results. So you want to see if there are lots of condos in there, you want to narrow it down to just the unit that you want. So we're going to do a condo search, and we're going to look at lot and concession searches. I don't think, honestly, you're going to use that much in the GTA, but if you're doing maybe some research for a client who might want to build a cottage somewhere in Northern Ontario, maybe you do that. And then we're also going to be searching by map today. And there are other ways of searching public records. MPAC's assessment roll number, or ARN, sometimes people call it an ARN. Land Registry's property identification number, or PIN. And you can also search by postal code. I don't know how many people remember postal codes just off the top of their heads, but you could do that. And then we're going to be looking at what the different viewports can do for us for these different search results that we have from our searches here. We'll also be talking about some of the reports that you can buy, and then at the end, answering your questions. So, okay, to ask me a question, speaking of that, if you're on a desktop or a laptop computer, there will be a little toolbar at the top right-hand corner of your screen. Click on the little white arrow on the orange background, and this whole panel will pop open. And then you're going to be able to type in a question for me here and then click send. You will also notice a widget holding a handout. I have a handout here, which is a copy of this PowerPoint that I have up on my screen. Now, if you're on a mobile device like a phone or a tablet, the screen's going to look completely different. To ask me a question, you look for the question mark icon. It could be up at the top of the screen. It could be down at the bottom of the screen. Depending on your device, it will be in a different location. Tap on that. Type in a question, tap on send. To find the handout that I provided, look for an icon that looks like a dog-eared piece of paper. So a piece of paper with a little curled up corner. It might actually say handouts right on it, as you can see in my screen capture here. Tap on that tap on the handout to download it to your device, and then tap on screen to return to the webinar once more. We also have a workbook. We used to teach this course before COVID in person, and it was a 3-hour course. So we had a workbook that accompanied that, and of course it's in PDF format now. Go to More on the TREB homepage, go down to Tech Corner, and then click on Manuals. And when you click on Manuals, another pop-up window will appear in your browser, and you're going to go to the Public Records Manual right there. Where to get help? If you need help on searching in Property Line, call up the TREB Help Desk. Here is their telephone number, and their numbers actually, there's a toll-free number here, and their email address, and here are their hours. And you don't have to write this down furiously on a little scrap of paper. Remember, everybody's getting a copy of this webinar sent to them in 2 days. So what types of data do you get from public records, from Property Line? All of this. You get the assessment date and phased-in value of the property. You get the legal description. There are 2 of them. There's a short version and then the full legal description. You'll also see the year built, lot width and lot depth, and the total lot square footage. Now that's the property's square footage, not the interior of the house square footage. So this is land. You'll also see the last sale date and amount, but only the last sale date and amount, not the history of the sales. You will see the numbers of bedrooms and washrooms in the property. You will see property demographics. So who lives in that neighborhood? What languages do they speak? How old are they? How many children do they have? How old are their children? What do they do for work? What religions are they, etc. You'll also see photos of the property and the neighboring properties. Now, if you want to get name on title, Property Line doesn't have that. You have to go to Geo Warehouse for that. That's where you can get name on title. Geo Warehouse also has historic sales. So if you want to see who bought the property before the current owners and what they paid for it and when, you'd be able to get that at a Geo Warehouse. Of all the viewports that you have, one viewport will pretty much give you all of that. That's the property viewport. The map viewport, which isn't really an MPAC thing. It actually comes from Ontario Land Registry. It will give you lot boundaries of the property. It will show you new subdivisions. It will show you easements in gross. It will show you the addresses of the neighboring properties. It will also show you the PIN number. Remember, that comes from Terranet. And it will also show you historic aerial images of the property. And of course, you could also go in and purchase one of the reports. All right. Now, I don't want you to do this. And this is why we use public records, to avoid this from happening. The listing on the left-hand side of my screen is from our MLS system. So this is a live listing. I didn't make this up. This is real. And when they listed this condo, the listing brokerage thought that the number on the door, which was 1705, reflected the legal description of the property, 1705. But it's not. Oftentimes in condo buildings, floors are missing because they're unlucky numbers. And so when the floors are removed, the numbers get screwed up. So the number on the door really doesn't match the legal description, and that's quite common. All they had to do was click on Property Line at the top of the listing, and they would have seen this. And it tells them quite clearly that it's level 16, unit 5, not level 17, 16. And the only time it takes, you just click, and there's the information. So it takes just a few seconds, and yet a few seconds obviously too much for this listing brokerage. So when you're putting in an offer on a property, don't assume that the listing is right. The listing brokerage can have screwed up like they did here. All you have to do is click the link on the listing, and you will see the correct information, and you put that in on your offer. Where does MPAC get all this stuff from in the first place? Well, when a property sells, they get that information. When a property is renovated, the permits are closed, they get that information from the municipalities. So they get all of that stuff fed to them. And they have valuation professionals that sift through all that information every month. They use over 200 data points, but 85% of what they consider the value of the property comes from just 5 things: the location of the property, the lot dimensions, the living area, the age of the property, and the quality of the construction. So these 5 take up 85% of the real value of the property. When there is a new build, so a construction company creates a whole new subdivision, they will again send all that information to MPAC. But sometimes they will only send the average of the model unit over, not individual changes that the homeowner has made before the property closed. If a renovation is done without permits, no one at MPAC would know. Except if the property sold, remember, they get all the sale data and they realize, wow, that property sold for a lot more than the neighboring properties. I wonder why. And they will investigate. Also, an investigation can be triggered by the homeowner themselves. I just got my city tax bill today, and in November, I got the MPAC evaluation on which the city tax bill is based. At that point in November, I could have contacted MPAC and processed a request for reconsideration, and that would have sent an investigator to my home to reevaluate it. And the value may go down or the value may go up. So there's a danger there. We also have videos on this topic. If you go to more videos here on the homepage, professional development, and you can go into related technology. We have some videos there on both MPAC and also on GeoWarehouse. Okay, enough of this yammering on. Let's get in here, shall we? Okay, so I want to go to our site. There we are. There's the homepage. Okay. So from here, how do you get into MPAC? You don't see it anywhere on your screen, do you? You have to go into one of the MLS systems in order to get it. So I'm going to go to Search Properties. Oh, and I hate when that happens. Sometimes you have to click that several times. I'm going to go and show you Matrix, first of all. So if you're a Matrix user, where do you find public records? Right here, right on the dashboard. There's property line right there. Okay? And also from a listing. So I'm just going to open up a property here. This is some random thing. How about this? Where do I find the link to MPAC on this listing in Matrix? Right here. Okay? See the little icon here says MPAC? Really, really tiny. It's hard to read, but that's where you get into property line. Now, what about Stratus users? How do they find it? I'm going to go into the MLS system of Stratus. And if you're a Stratus user, you're going to find public records right over here in the left side panel, right there. And again, on a listing. I'll just open up a condo here. And this example, and here's a link to property line right there, right? So several ways to find it, depending on which front-end interface you're using for the MLS system. Since I've finished up on Stratus, I'm just going to use the public records link on the left-hand side here. Okay, there we are. So this is property line. Now, the first thing I want to show you about property line, see this panel on the left-hand side of the screen here? Sometimes people close it down accidentally. See, there's a little arrowhead here, a little chevron. When I click on that, it closes that whole panel down. You can't see it again. And if you close out of here and you come back in, this is what you're going to see. So then people kind of freak out. They forget that they've closed it down. All you have to do is just click on the chevron again, and it pops back open once more. Another thing you can do in here, when you do a report, let's say you print out a report, maybe of this data that I see right here, it can have your branding up at the top of the report. So your name, your contact information, and your photograph if you wish it as well. And you do that by going to Profile. I'm going to click on Profile here. That's me, by the way. I was probably having a bad day that day. I look rather stern. There you are. You type in your name. This is all bogus information that I've typed in here. And then you click Save Changes. To upload your photo, you just click Choose File. And then you save it. And then that will appear on the reports that you print out. So that's really easy to do. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. This is completely optional. So I've got a little property up here, and it always defaults to Treb's address if you don't have anything searched. Now, for a matrix user, there is no link to go to GeoWarehouse directly, because in Stratus, you can see I've got a link right over here to go directly to GeoWarehouse. That doesn't exist in Matrix right now. So how do you get into GeoWarehouse if you're a Matrix user? Well, right over here. See at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen? See that G, golden G, looks like a house? You click on that, and that takes you to GeoWarehouse. So a lot of people ask that question. A Matrix user asks that question a lot. So that's how you do that. All right, let's do a little search, shall we? I'm going to click in here. To do a search, you can do a single search or a comparable search. What's a comparable search do? That's useful when you're doing sort of like a CMA light in here. Notice that in a CMA that you do in our MLS system, it's only bringing up properties that were MLS listings. Obviously, it's an MLS system. What if there were properties that you want to use as a comparison for your CMA, but they were sold privately? Or maybe they were an exclusive sale by a brokerage. They won't be in our MLS system, right? How do you find them? By doing this. Going to comparable search, and you search for the address of the property, and you fill this information in, and you click search. And then you will find all the sales of that type of property in a given area, whether they were exclusive, private, or MLS. Most of your searches, though, are going to be done on the single search tab. And on the single search tab, you can search by address, by assessment roll number, which is a 15-digit number. And you can always see it right here. This is Treb's building, right? 1400 Don Mills Road. There is their 15-digit assessment roll number right there. Or by the land registry PIN number, which is a 9-digit number, or by lot and concession. So we'll start off simply today. We'll start off with an address search. On the address tab, I'm going to slowly type in the address of a property. So 247 space Alfred, A-L-F-R-E-D. I'm going to wait because you can see it's searching here. There we are. Now, why didn't I type in the full address, 247 Alfred Patterson Drive? Well, I was actually searching for my own information just before the webinar began today, and I know my own address. But there's a west at the end of my address, and I typed in a period after the W. It didn't like that and found nothing. So that small little change can screw up your search entirely. So I rarely type in a full address. I type in the first little bit of it, and the search works. You might find several similar properties, but you'd easily be able to see the one you want, and when you see it, you click on it, and there you go. There's the information about 247 Alfred Patterson Drive. So when you're doing an address search, keep it simple, and you will have better results. The more you type in, the greater the chances you have of making a mistake, like typing in a period that it didn't like. So here we go. This is the property detail viewport. I'll talk about its information in a moment. First of all, I want to address what the viewports are for. There are 5 of them. I mentioned that earlier. So this is one of the 5. What are the 5? If I zoom in here, you can really see them. See, this icon here represents a map viewport. This one represents a streetscape viewport. It's very much like, Google Maps, where you can drop down on the property on the screen and actually see all the properties around there. This one gives you static photographs. This one is a comparable window. This is very useful when you're doing a comparable search. It's called the results viewport. And lastly, the viewport we already have open on our screen, a property detail viewport. Now let me zoom out so you can actually see the change that happens when I click on these buttons. I'm going to click on the map viewport. And look what happened. It didn't change this viewport. It added another one, the map. There it is. What happens when I click on the streetscape viewport? It adds that one. Here's the image of the property. The single best photo viewport, it adds that one. and then the results viewport. There they are. There are the 5 of them. Now, they're all the same size right now. What if I want one of them to be bigger than all the others? You see on the toolbar, you'll see this arrow kind of spreading apart beside the X here, just to the left of the X. That will make this window the larger of the 5. There we go. And all the other ones become much smaller. And that way you can see the majority of your information here, but you can also see what's going on in the other viewports too. Let's just look at one viewport at a time, because this view is kind of confusing. I'm just going to close all the other viewports that I don't want to see right now by clicking on their X's. And then they close. There we are. So let's look at each one of these in detail, one at a time. Here is the property detail viewport. Property detail viewport is telling me that this is in Markham. Here's the roll number. And then below that, there are 4 tabs. The property tab is giving me a lot of information. It's telling me this is a residential property. The property code is 301, single family detached, not on water. What does that mean? This is just a code that MPAC gives all the properties in Ontario of this type. There are a whole bunch of them. And they're 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, and then they will break down like 301. Don't worry about the number. What not on water means, it's not that it doesn't have water. This isn't the 1700s. It has water. It's just not on a body of water. It's not on a lake, or it's not on a river. Then I have 2 legal descriptions. So let me zoom in and you can take a look at those. This right here is the full, true legal description. So if that's the real legal description, what's this thing? Why do I have 2 and one much shorter than the other? This legal description, the assessment role legal description, is useful when you're listing a property in our MLS system. You don't need to use the full legal description because some legal descriptions are gigantic and they will certainly not fit in Add Edit because the field is only maybe a line and a half long. So what if you have a paragraph or more for the legal description? It won't work. You use this one instead on your listing. Now, when you're doing an offer on a property, you are required to put in the full legal description. So then you would use this one here. Also, take a look at this one. This says that this property has 2 easements. I can see one here, subject to a right, as in this. That's the number of the easement right there. And then there's another easement for entry, which is here. So 2 different types of easements. One allowing someone to, probably, share a driveway or a walkway, likely between the houses. This one is an easement for entry, probably for services. So that's where you see the easements. This is a 2-story property. There are no part stories. The frontage and depth are sitting in here. Now, sometimes you will not see the depth. This is an irregular sized lot. So the depth is slightly off on one side, but I know only slightly. How do I know that? Because the depth is showing up. If it is a very irregular lot, the depth will be 0. And then you'll be able to find out what the actual sides are if you had a survey of the property or you went to GeoWarehouse. GeoWarehouse will just show you that. So sometimes, that's why I wanted to explain to you, sometimes depth is 0. We live in a 3-dimensional universe, so the depth can never really be 0. It's just because the lot is very irregular in size. The site area is the size of the lot, not the property. That would be quite big. And the year built, it was built in 2005. Now notice this, the last sale date was in 2005, which means what? It means on October the 1st, so it's day, month, year, October the 1st, 2005, the current owners bought it from the builder. And they paid the builder $402,907. Then you have the valuation information down here. And you'll see 2 years, 2012 and 2016. So every 4 years, there's a new evaluation in the province of Ontario. Except this time, because of COVID, 2020 was supposed to be a new evaluation year. So there should have been another line up here saying assessed value on January the 1st, 2020, and then a number beside it. That's not there. MPAC did not do assessments in 2020, and they're not doing them this year either. They're going to start that in 2022. So January 1st, 2022, you're going to see a new number up here and a new value sitting beside it. So do your taxes jump every 4 years? No, they don't. They slowly work their way up. So look at this. See the value in 2012, 677? Wow, look at there, 677. And that will be the year, so they reached that valuation after 2012. 4 years later, there's a new evaluation year, 2016, boom, that number comes into play. Then it creeps up, creeps up, creeps up. There would have been a new evaluation in 2020, but there wasn't, so they kept that value for 2021 as well. Why are these numbers here? These are the important ones, actually. Forget about these up here. Pay attention to these. These are the ones used by the municipalities to calculate property taxes. They will take this number, multiply it by the 2021 mill rate for that municipality, divide by 100, and they get the base tax value for the property. So these numbers are important. I just got my tax bill today, actually. It's interesting that I'm teaching this webinar today. The tax bills for Toronto just arrived today in my mailbox. So I saw that number, I did my calculation, and yep, it's dead on what's on that bill. So that's the property tab. On the enhanced tab, what else do we get? Well, there are 4 bedrooms in this property, and there are 4 washrooms, 3 full washrooms and a powder room. There is a functioning fireplace. There is an attached 2-car garage. It's a private driveway. There is no pool on the property, and there's no split. So it's not a side split or a back split, in other words. Treb MLS sales, I'm not going to see anything here. There's a error that it's not pulling the data right now. But it would just give you the same sort of MLS sales history that you would have received, if you did a search here, right? Would have been no different. Demographics, this will tell you who lives there. So the average house price in that area is $121,000. Here are the age of the people who live here. So the majority of the people who live in that neighborhood are actually, not quite middle-aged, getting there. They're pushing it. And how many males or females? Even split pretty much. How old are their children? Given that they're in their 30s and 40s, their children are fairly young as well. Most of them, 96%, own their properties. 69% of them are detached houses. Most of them were built in this period here. 66% of these people are married. 49% speak English. The second most popular language there is Cantonese. Majority of people who profess a religion say that they're Christian. 44%, 45 really, essentially 0.99%, 45% have a university diploma or degree, and 25% of them work in finance. And how do they get to work? 72% drive. So that's what you get on the property detail viewport for every property that you search in MPAC. So this is a very useful detail viewport, right? Property detail. Let's go and look at the map viewport for the same property. I'm going to close this one down. Now, I didn't have to do that. I pointed out these 5 buttons over here which open up their associated viewport. But you have these buttons here as well, and they allow you to move from one viewport, sort of convert the viewport over to whatever you want it to be. Here is our property. Now you might be looking at this and thinking, well, something's wrong. This yellow line are the borders of this particular property. But what's weird about this is that it appears to be kind of intruding on the neighboring properties. It's not. We have 2 different views being superimposed over one another. This is a map view. And this yellow line, pretend that you're the Jolly Green Giant, and you're standing directly over this property. You're huge, and you can look directly down on top of it. These little gray blocks here, which represent the footprint of all the other properties, are taken at an angle. You can see a bit of a shadow on them, can't you? So I've got a direct view and an angle view at the same time. I'm going to clear that up by looking at the satellite view. There we go. Dead on the fences and on the sidewalk in the front, just as it should be. I'm going to go back to the map view again. And I'll zoom out slightly so you can actually see where this property is. So there's a little bit of a park over here. And this can also give me some extra information too. Not only can I move between map and satellite view, but at the bottom right-hand corner, I've got something called layers. And I click on layers. I've got 5 features that I can turn on. If you're old enough to remember this, you might have had in school overhead projectors, and you had these transparencies that were put on them and they'd be projected onto the screen. Well, that's what these things are. They're going to layer themselves on top of this map. The first layer that I want to place on top of the map is the parcel layer. Here we are. Look what that did. It put in all the border lines of these properties. But it did something else too. We zoom in, you can see the address of all these properties. That's kind of cool. But then there's this, all these little red lines all over the place. And that's not a property. And this isn't a property either. And neither is this or that. So these aren't actually properties. These are parcels. These are parcels. And each parcel in Ontario will be defined like this. So these are all individual parcels up here, not necessarily properties. You would never consider a roadway or a part of a roadway to be a property, but it is a parcel. So each parcel has its own PIN number and its own assessment roll number as well. Okay, let's change it from the address to ownership. Not much seems to have changed, but if I zoom in, oh, it's no longer the address on the door. This is the PIN number. So this is the property identification number that comes from Land Registry, because all of this data here is actually coming from the Ontario Parcel Registry. This isn't actually MPAC data. This is Ontario Parcel Registry data. So I can see all the PIN numbers. Now, why would I care about the PIN number? All legal documents related to these parcels will have a PIN number. And lawyers look up PIN numbers because PIN numbers are more unique than addresses. But look at this, some weird stuff here. Look at that. This property has 2 PIN numbers. The main property here, and then this little tiny corner over here has its own PIN. This one has 2 pins, so does this one, so does this one. I'll explain why in a moment. Keep that at the back of your head. And also what this weird line is that's kind of shooting across the screen at an angle. We'll look at that later. What else can I do with a parcel layer? I can go to property types. Remember I said this was a 301 single family detached not on water? All of those are. But if I zoom out enough, I can see, oh, there's some other colors too. Not just green, there's purple, there's red, there's orange. What does all that mean? There is an artist palette at the top right-hand corner of the screen. If I click on the artist palette, the legend drops down. So I can see, oh, there's still some farmland over here. The red stuff over here, that's industrial. The purple stuff is other. So let's say, I believe this was a religious property here. Okay, so that's kind of neat. Close that down again. So that's the parcel layer. I'm just going to turn that off. You can see where the property is located because of the pin 247 sitting there. I'm going to turn on the aerial layer now. And I've got to wait a moment. Now this looks like the satellite view that I showed you earlier, doesn't it? But it's not. This photograph was not taken by a satellite. This photograph was taken by an airplane flying over Markham. But it looked like the photograph was taken on a rather humid, hazy day, doesn't it? Remember what these things are. These are layers. These are transparencies on top of the map. And you can still see a bit of the map underneath. You can see the neighborhood name here and the names of the parks and the names of the streets are kind of showing up. Let's change that. Right over here, this is a slider that allows me to see more or less of the underlying map. Move it to the right, you don't see any of the underlying map anymore. You just see the aerial layer, and it is much clearer. So let's zoom in on our little house over here. Okay, so none of these people really have pools in their property at all. There's none, apparently. And when was this picture taken? That was done in the spring of 2019, it tells me. But there's a drop-down arrow too. You can time travel. Let's see what this looked like in 2016. Just going to wait for that to refresh. Look at that. You can see these properties over here were still being framed. Our house was done. I mean, there's a little car in the driveway, so obviously people are living in here. Let's see it. Go back a little further. How about 2011? And wait for that to refresh. Still dirt back here. And then we see this line of trees. Let's go all the way back to the year 2000. It was a farmer's field. And there's that line of trees. And that's delimiting this farmer's field from this farmer's field up here. And also, this is a lot. So this thing right over here, this big rectangle, is a lot. There's a lot up here as well. That's what the line of trees are doing. Most farmers would have planted a line of trees separating their property from their neighbor's property so they would realize whose property was whose. But you've seen that line of trees somewhere else. Do you remember where? There it is right there. That line that's moving across here, that's where the line of trees was. What did the line of trees represent? The borderline of a lot. So this up here is one lot, this down here is another lot, and that is why when a property straddles a lot, you have two PIN numbers. So you might have two PIN numbers and two legal descriptions. Want to see? If I want to switch from 247 Alfred Patterson and I want to look at this property, all I have to do is double click on it with my map. There we go. Property's highlighted. Now let me look at the property viewport, property detail viewport. There we go. And as I predicted, two legal descriptions, one for each PIN number. So if you ever notice that on a property, it's probably why. That's what's going on. Okay, what else can we do with these layers that we have here? So I showed you the aerial layer. Let's look at the feature layer. Now, the only feature in the feature layer is new subdivision. That's it. Now, I don't know. I wouldn't consider these houses that new. They're newish, maybe. New, I would consider, last few years. These are older than that. How can you control what is considered new? Right over here. There's this little filter. And if you can click on the drop-down arrow for the filter, you can choose what you consider to be new. So maybe properties built since 2019 or 2018, then it will show you all the properties that are new according to you, and they will show up with a pink borderline all the way around them. All right, what else do we have? The community layer. This is rather, not that interesting. It just color codes the different neighborhoods that are here. That's all. So you've got a blue one over here, which is, Greensboro neighborhood. Wismer Common is pink over here. That's all. And if you zoom out even more, the colors will disappear and the names of the neighborhoods will appear. The last layer that I have is the most difficult to see. It's the easement layer. Now, why is it difficult to see? Because easements show up as very thin yellow lines, and there is an easement showing up on my screen, an easement in gross, as opposed to an appurtenant easement. These were easements in gross, but I don't see any. But there's some here. I'm going to switch from my map view to the satellite view, which is a little darker. And these yellow lines will show up better, like right here. There is an easement in gross right there. Easements in gross, as you may remember, are easements owned by corporations or municipalities. So they don't belong to a property. And you can see one here. And if I show you another one, I'm going to do a little bit of traveling here. Oh, there's one. Looks like the Little Dipper. And if I zoom in on it enough, can anyone figure out what this is? What place is nicely manicured and has items in it? Here's a hint, row on row. Remember the poem that says row on row? What is that referring to? A cemetery. This is a cemetery, and these are headstones. So, if you're a little freaked out by that, you probably wouldn't want to be this farmer. And his orchard surrounds the cemetery. Ugh. I don't know if I'd want to eat any of the apples coming out of his orchard. But this is an easement. It is owned by the church who had this cemetery. So it's owned again by a corporation, hence it's an easement in gross. And this is the walkway that the mourners can take to come across his property. So it's giving them access to their cemetery, which is otherwise in the middle of his property. So you can see it quite clearly when you're in satellite view. It's much more difficult to see it when you're in map view. All right, so there are easements. All right, so that's the map viewport. What about the other ones? You're probably going to use the property detail viewport and the map viewport the most often of the 5 that you have. But let's go and look at the other 3. Here's a streetscape viewport for the property. Now let me go back to, this is Chiswick Court. I'm going to go back to Alfred Patterson. How do I do that? Well, I can do that in my left side panel here. You can see the results of the searches that I've been doing over the time. And I'll click on Alfred Patterson, and there it is. So when this picture was taken, this poor man was trying to get something out of the back of his truck. So he's been immortalized forever. They should have blurred his face better than that. What if I don't want to use this picture? I don't like this one particularly because of the truck. Again, you can time travel. See, this was taken in June 11th, 2020. So almost a year ago. I'm going to go back to June of 2019. Ah, that's a better picture. Obviously, they have a young child here. There's a little stroller there. Why do we have these pictures? You can use them. You can use them in your marketing materials. You can use them on the MLS system. For example, let's say that this is not June of 2021 and a rather warm, steamy day, but let's say it's in the middle of February. There's snow all over the ground. It's snowing outside. It's miserable. Do I want to take a picture of this property and put it in the MLS system? Probably not. It wouldn't reflect the property very nicely. So what might I do? I could take this picture and use it instead. And then I would take, of course, the interior pictures myself. So how do I get this picture to use it on my listing? There is a save button up here. Look, a little floppy diskette icon on the toolbar. You click on that. There's the property. And then I can use these tools here to zoom in. So I'll zoom in a little bit more and maybe a bit more than that. Okay, that's better. And then I'm going to change the pitch a little bit. So that's a little bit extreme. I'm going to go the other way. I just want to get the peak of that roof. Perfect. And I get just enough of the lawn in here and I don't get any of the street showing up. Then I might want to change the level horizon. Looks like this picture was taken at a slight angle. There, I've corrected it. And then you can move this left or right a little bit, like this, see? And once you get the picture exactly the way you want it, you click save and it downloads it to your computer. And then you can use that photograph on your listings or your marketing material until you can take a better picture. And you don't have to worry about copyright infringement. We have purchased the rights to these photographs for you to use, and that's why they're here. So that's the streetscape viewport. What about the single best photo viewport? These are still images of the property. I can't manipulate them. I can't drag them around. These are just still photographs. And again, you can save them. The fifth viewport will show me all of my search results in one screen. This is the results viewport. And I can click on these different items here to see what it is. I'm going to click on Treb's result, and there it is. So it gives you a little bit of information about them. Now, when I'm doing a normal single search, this isn't that useful. When I'm doing a comparable search, you remember what that is? It's when you're doing a bit of a CMA. I would be able to check mark all the properties that I want to include in my comparable, and then I can print them. I can go to the report here and actually print them out. All right, so those are the 5 viewports and what they do. And we were using 247 Alfred Patterson for this. Let's go and do another search. Let's look for a condo in this example. So I'm going to click reset here and see what reset. Clicking reset gets rid of the address. I could have also highlighted that and deleted it with my mouse as well. Let's see. I'm going to type in 500 SHER. I'm going to leave it at that. Remember, keep it simple. Watch what happens. There we are. 500 Sherburne. And there are a lot of 500 Sherburnes here. And I can see, because they're in square brackets, this is a condo tower, and these are the actual units. Now, I could try to scroll down in here and try to find, unit, the unit that I want, or I could just type in here the unit that I want. And then it brings up just that one. So when you're searching for condos, find the building first, then type in the unit number after that, and it will narrow it down. Click on it. There we are. Now look at that legal description. Isn't that a sweetheart? It has 3 paragraphs in it. So how do you read that? Well, you use the shorter one for that. So look at this. Unit 172, it says locker bicycle. So this thing right here, this is the legal description of the bike locker that is associated with this condo unit. But go over here, see PKG. So this is the parking, and that's going to be this one over here. Unit 105, level A. That's the parking space, which leaves this one to be the legal description of the condo apartment itself. So the shorter legal description often gives you a guide into how to interpret the full legal description. It's a 2-story condo, as you can see. That's nice. The building was built in 2010, and the last sale date was 2017. And the last time they paid $630,000 for that. And again, the phased in assessment down below. On the enhanced tab, it's a 1-bedroom, 2-bathroom property. There is 1 indoor parking spot. We already saw that as well, and 1 locker. Treb MLS sales. Oh, look at this. Remember, there was a sale in 2010 and 2013 and 2017. Wait a minute. If I go back, so that was October 28th, 2016. This said it sold in January 27th, 2017. What gives? Well, think about it. In our MLS system, when do we say that a property is sold? We say it is sold when the conditions are either waived or met. We mark it as sold. Is it really sold? No, it's not really sold. It's not really sold until the deal closes. So this was the quote-unquote soft sale date. MPAC and Geo Warehouse don't care about that. They care about the closing date, which is right here. So that's why sometimes you'll see, oh, it's sold, several months after it was supposed to have sold, but no, It's the same sale. And on demographics, you can see some information here about the property. Okay, so that's searching for a condo. I'm going to click reset. And what about searching for a lot in concession? I don't think too many of you are going to do this, but you might if you were searching for maybe a property in the countryside, maybe to build a cottage on. Maybe it's a vacant lot right now. Okay, so here's how that works. You choose the township first. All the townships in the province of Ontario are in this list. It's a massive list, isn't it? You can also use your keyboard to help you out. So I want Mono Township. So if I type in M-O there, it helped narrow it down for me, and I can click right on Mono. I don't have to scroll around quite so much. So Mono Township. Oh, by the way, I'm just going to switch this over to a map viewport. So Mono Township, and then I'm going to go to concession, and I'm going to say concession 2 east of Huron, and then where it says lot, I'm going to choose lot 11. Look what just happened. The map viewport switched over and is showing me the lot. So there it is. It's probably about 100 acres sitting right there. And you can see that half of it is part of Hockley Valley Provincial Park. I like to go cross-country skiing there. And there's a little river running through this lot. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in. And then I'm going to go to satellite view. Ah, there you go. And then you can see these properties. So it's very heavily forested. And if I go in, and I want to find out some information about this house here. It looks quite big, doesn't it? I'm going to double click on it and watch what happens. There, see the yellow border around it and the little cerise push pin sitting on the property. Now I'm going to move over to the property detail viewport. There's its address and there's all of its information. Last sold in 2012 for $745,000. So that's searching by lot and concession. Now, what I often do, let me go back to the map view again. A lot of properties, especially out in the countryside, if you're doing cottage searches, and I do that all the time, I'm trying to, well, I'm never going to afford a condo now. No, with current, I mean a cottage now, but maybe in the future. So I look at realtor.ca and, fantasize like many people do about properties that I might be able to buy. But they don't give you a lot of information in realtor.ca. So I want to find out more. And usually there's no address on it, or sometimes there isn't. So I will be able to see that it's near a particular road. So maybe it's near, I don't know, just off of this road here. And I can see that in the map, but I don't know exactly where it is. You navigate there using the map, switch over to satellite view. Oh, there it is. Double click on it, and then you'll get the information for that property in the property detail viewport. Okay. So different ways of searching. Now, let me go back to 247 Alfred Patterson again. You see how I did that? I just went into my search results on the left-hand side here. Now, over time, you're going to do lots and lots and lots of searches, and they're all going to build up here, which allows you to easily move between properties again. If you ever want to clean out your history, all you have to do is click on this red garbage can here, and it gets rid of all of it. Or you can click on these X's here to delete individual properties. Now I want to go and look at GeoWarehouse for some extra information on this property. I can see that when it last sold, it was 2005. Actually, let's go to an older property. Let's go to that country property that we had. Okay. Are we going to get any other information on this property last sold in 1974? Probably not, but we'll see. There are two ways of accessing GeoWarehouse. I pointed out one to you already. The house icon, the G icon in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. I'm going to click on the one at the top right-hand corner of the screen. And the difference is going to be this. All TREB members get 2,000 detailed reports per year as a part of their TREB membership. You pay for it in your membership dues. So when you click on this icon here and then you choose OK, it's going to use up one of your 2,000 reports. Now, what would happen if I clicked on the G icon at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen? This wouldn't have happened. That icon takes me to Geo Warehouse, where I can just do a search. And then if I click on the results of the search, I can access the detailed report, and then again, it will take one of my 2,000 reports. So this button up at the top right-hand corner brings up this warning because are you sure you want to use up your limited 2,000 reports? And they renew, by the way, October the 1st. It's not January the 1st, it's October the 1st of every year. I do because I don't use them for any other purpose. I'm going to click OK. And it's going to give me a little bit of extra information about this property. Geo Warehouse is TerraNet's public-facing database. Okay, so here's that country property that I found. And you can see name on title. Okay. So it's James Scott and Lori Kerr who own that property. And moving on down, no photograph of it because, of course, it's hidden by these huge bushes. And I scroll down. Here are the individual dimensions of the property there. Scroll on down. Oh, there is a little bit of previous sale history. So I can see in June 27th, 1975, Diane and Peter bought this for $1. What does that mean? Well, they didn't buy it for $1. They probably inherited the property for $1, or they bought it from a family member. So it was just transferred over to them. So they need to put some value here. So when you see something ridiculous like $1 or $2 or $0, it's not true. It's just, it's not an arm's length transaction. So it was a transaction between related parties. And then it was sold in 2003 and purchased by the Heron family. And then in 2012, it was purchased by James and Lori. Now, why does it start in 1975? Well, when all of these paper documents in the Land Registry Office were put online, like here in Geo Warehouse, it's called the automation date. When the automation date came around for this property, staff at Land Registry would have looked back 10 years. And they would have included anything that happened in the previous 10 years, but no further back than that. So that's why sometimes you go into the history here in Geo Warehouse and you only see the current owners. You don't see anything further going back in time because of that reason when the results were automated. And then I can see some reports here. Now, often when I get into Geo Warehouse, and I've just mentioned those 2,000 reports, remember? A lot of members will say, well, how do I know how many I've used up and how many I have left? Up here at the top right-hand corner, do you see something called Account? Click on Account. And then you click on My Account. And you will see how many reports you've used up, in my case, 38, for 38 of the 2,000 that I have. And you can see it's going to renew on October the 1st. Any items that you've downloaded in here will be saved in here forever. See, going back well years ago. So what can you buy in here? Well, this is cool. I used to live in this condo building, small condo building, but it was really well maintained, beautifully maintained. And I was up here. This was my unit right over here. That's where I lived. Small little place. But why am I showing you this? Watch this arrowhead here move as I move down pages. See that? And what is it doing? It's showing you the floor plans of the floors. So these units are huge. Look at them. They're double size. Move up to the top floor and they go into individuals again, but the ones on the end are still very big. What else is it showing me? Well, what are these? These are the parking spaces underneath the building. So when I showed you the legal description and you saw the unit number of the parking space? Well, you can buy this. This is a condominium plan from Geo Warehouse. And you're looking at it and your client says, oh, I would love to buy that condo. And you think, well, that is a lovely condo. You're absolutely right. It's beautiful, beautiful exposure. But you walk with a cane. You have limited mobility. Your parking space is way over here. The elevator's way over here. Do you really want to buy that? I mean, we might be able to find you a spot closer to the elevator, but this is a spot associated with that unit. So is that really, something that you want? You need to decide that. So you can get some really cool information by buying one of these reports. And then once you've purchased it, you got it forever. It's yours forever. Another thing you can buy in here, let me go back to my results. I'm going to open up a different property here. Let me go back to Eastwood again. Now, how many times can I visit a detailed report for a property? Once a week. So if I've searched for this and I see that the Brennan family own this particular property, and there's the photograph of the house, and here's the sale history of the property. They're the only ones that have owned it since 1986. And again, I only see the one there because that was when it was built. How many times can I view this? You can view it in 7 days, as many times as you want, and you will not use up another one of your reports. If you wait 8 days, boom, another one of your 2,000 reports has been used up. So look at this while you can. And what else can I do with this? I'm going to actually go into its store. Up here, I can buy some reports on this, like a parcel registry. What's a parcel registry? That is the granddaddy of all the reports. When a lawyer checks title on a property, what are they doing? They're looking at this thing. It costs you $30. So I'm going to view a sample. I'm not going to pay $30 to view this. This is a sample parcel registry. It will show you owners of the property. It will show you when they bought it for how much. It will show you if there are any liens on the property and any mortgages on the property and for how much. Who holds that lien or mortgage? It's all going to be here. So this is why lawyers check this document. It costs you a little over $30 to buy it. Now, there are reports as well in Property Line. Now, how do you get the reports in Property Line? You click on the $ icon. Click on the $ icon, it takes you into the real store. Now, I'm on a residential property, so when I'm on residential, I'm seeing residential reports that I can purchase. If I go to a commercial property, here are the commercial reports that I can buy. So it's depending on the type of property you're on at the time. And this one is a very popular one, residential floor area. Let's look at that. What is it going to give you? It's going to give you the total floor area above grade. So it does not include the basement. Never does. Now, this is not the real property. This is a dummy report. So don't thinking, ooh, I got it for free. No, I would have to pay $5 to get the real report. This is just a fake one. But it's showing you what you get for $5. There you are. Now, what else can I do? I'm going to click go back. What is a $9 residential detail report going to give me? It's going to give me that same value, the total floor area above grade, but it also shows me the floor area of all the individual floors. So there's the first floor, the second floor is a little bigger, the basement, and the finished area of the basement. And that's not all. You also get the size of the garage. So for $4 extra, you get this extra information. And what if you wanted to buy a lot of these over time? And you might be doing this. A good thing is to buy bundles because you can get, up to a 30% discount if you buy a bundle. And it's like a pay-as-you-go phone. You use up these credits over time and they do not expire with time. You just use them up until they're all gone. So that's the real store found in Property Line. And it's just a little bit past 3, so I apologize for going slightly over. And I didn't even show you absolutely everything that you can do, certainly not in Geo Warehouse. I'm going to open this up for questions, And let's see what you have to ask me. Okay, let's see here. Dinesh asks, what it makes different if actual physical unit number and level of both parking and locker into condo apartments are not matching with the same appearing different information in the title property papers. Well, the title property papers are the correct information on the property. So if they're not matching up, you're going to have to inquire as to why. When I was living in that condo building, my unit was associated with a parking space, but no one was using a better parking space, so I was offered that one, and I gave up the other one that was not in a good position. But it's not part of the title of the property. I was using it. I was given that by the management company, but it's not part of the title. Another unit was. So eventually, I was living in that building for a few years. The parking space that I was using was sold. The unit was sold. And then I had to go back to my less desirable parking space. So the legal documents will be correct. If you want to find the true legal information on the property, that's the parcel register. Yes, Christine, you get a copy of this one too. That's okay if you join late, that's fine. You're busy people. Mirko asks, what is the coefficient and formula to calculate property tax? Well, Mirko, I'm going to show you it. I'm going to show you how to calculate it. But before I do that, I want to say to you, take this information with a big grain of salt, like a baseball-sized grain of salt. And I'm going to explain why. Okay, let me show you that calculation. Here it is. This is how you calculate property tax. You take the phased-in assessment value and you multiply it by the mill rate, and the years have to match. So 2021, 2021, 2020, 2020, and you divide by 100. Now, why do I say take that with a baseball-sized grain of salt? In Toronto, like this is actually mine. This is my taxes on my property, as they were revealed to me today. But some municipalities, like Richmond Hill especially, will layer special assessments on top of that. So this number here won't be the final number. It'll be another number. And will you know what that is? No, you won't. And you will not be able to know. The homeowner knows, you will not know. So that's why we know when people put on their listings, buyer to verify taxes, the buyer can't verify the taxes. Only the seller can verify their own taxes. So don't put that stupid crap on a listing. It's ridiculous, and it'll get you into trouble perhaps. Everybody's got to do their due diligence, but that's a really dumb thing to put on your listing. You think about it for a moment and you won't do it anymore. So this number is what I pay in taxes. But if you were doing this calculation, would you know if there was a special assessment on my property? No. So think of this as the base value. This is the starting point, and there may be extra on top of that. So always ask the seller for their tax bill. Don't rely on this calculation, as simple as it is. Sheeta asks, when does MPAC record of geo warehouse information get updated? I see most properties have made upgrades like additional washrooms or bedroom, but MPAC and geo warehouse doesn't show the information. Does that mean that work wasn't done without a permit? Well, it may not have been done without a permit. MPAC says, and they publicly say this, that they update their records every month, as does geo warehouse. I know for a fact that that is not always true. I'm not going to say that they're lying, but in my case, it wasn't true. Once this house was completely renovated, and once the permits for Toronto were closed with the municipality, I expected within a month, my information would show up in MPAC. It didn't. I'd check every month, and every month, nope. It took them 7.5 months to update their records. Eventually they do, but it wasn't a month like they say. It was much longer than that, but they do get updated. So if a renovation was done many months ago and it's not showing up, you might inquire as to why, because they should. Let's see. Oh, Jake wants to know how to edit the photograph again. Sure, no problem. So let me get out of the real store, close that down. There we go. I'm going to bring up the the streetscape. Why am I using streetscape? Because I can manipulate the picture, right? So let me go to an older version of that. There we are. And I'm just going to turn it a little bit to the side. I'm actually dragging. I'm clicking and dragging on this. I'm going to drag it a little bit to the side. Now, to save this picture and to manipulate it before you save it, you're going to go to the floppy diskette icon. I've always wondered when programmers are going to get rid of floppy diskettes to represent saving, because when was the last time you used a floppy diskette? That was a long time ago. Okay, so there's the same picture. See, after I dragged it around, that's the same image I had. So now I can start working with that. And I can zoom in on it quite a bit. And, oh, I don't like that anymore. I can maybe change the yaw, move it over a little bit. That's a bit too much. And then again, I can manipulate it. I want to get rid of the property on the side. Whoops, it's too much. All right, and then I can zoom in a little bit more perhaps, and I can also change the pitch and the level horizon. So I'm going to level it out a little bit, and I'm going to change the pitch to maybe about there. That's nice. And then you click on the floppy diskette icon to save the final manipulated picture to your computer. Christine's asking, can I search for a property I already previously searched in GeoWarehouse but didn't search from history? Does it count as a new search added to the 2000? Okay, let me answer that question for you. I'm going to go to GeoWarehouse. And I'm going to search for a property. Now, you notice this property is in Sarnia, so this is far away. When you're searching by address, it searches the entire province for this. So you don't have to choose your region, you just type in the address. Now, another search you can do in GeoWarehouse is a search by name, owner's name. And if you do that, then you must, before you type in the owner name, change it to the municipality first, because it will not search the entire province for a name. It only does that for address. Okay, click on this. So I've searched for this property in Sarnia, Ontario. And you can see where it is, sitting right there, a little blue indicator on it, sitting on a park right by a school. Now, that search that I've just done is free. It doesn't use up any of my 2000 reports. I can see the legal description of the property. I can see its PIN number and its assessment roll number, and that's it. That's all it's giving me. If I click on property report to see the full details, then I've used up one of my 2000 GeoWarehouse reports. And how many times can I revisit this property? As many times as I want within the next 7 days. Michelle asks, can a buyer's agent request from a seller's agent a copy of their current taxes? You could ask the seller's agent for a copy of the current taxes, but they have to have that on their listing, remember? It's on their listing. So they have to have the correct taxes on their listing. Now, right now, the taxes for 2021 are just coming out. The municipalities are just sending out those bills now. So if you looked at a listing that was entered in any earlier really than today, you're going to see the 2020 taxes on them, not the 2021 taxes. So you might therefore ask, well, what are the current taxes? Because I know that just came out. Did your client get their current tax bill? Has it changed much? Because that is a material fact, and they have to disclose material facts. Are there any other questions? There's so much stuff in here. This is like, Pandora's box, but in a good way. You're kind of playing around. Any other questions that I could answer for you about this? You're probably thinking, oh, I can't think of anything right now, but I will later. If you do later, that's okay. You can send an email to webinars, that's plural, webinars, @trebnet.com, and you can ask us a question, and we will answer your question. Are there any other things? I'm just getting, thank yous here, but you don't have to thank me. I want to thank you for actually coming into this webinar today. I enjoy teaching this stuff, especially public records, because it's so cool. I try really hard not to sort of creep on people in public records, because you're not supposed to do that. It's a violation of the terms. But it is rather tempting, isn't it? But I do enjoy looking at all the data that's in here, because you can search the entire province for information in both of these databases. And good on you for coming into this webinar today, because you didn't have to. I'm sure you've got other things you could have done today, but you decided to learn more about how public records and GeoWarehouse work, so that you're better doing your job, and therefore you're more valuable for your clients, and you can give your clients better service. So give yourselves a pat on the back for coming into this webinar today, which you didn't have to do. Jake's asking, can I ask a general question? Sure, as long as it's not a personal question, you can ask a general question. Go ahead. TV mount is a fixture. If it is not mentioned in the agreement of purchase to sell or purchaser can assume to take it. Legally, yes, they can, Jake, because a wall mount is a fixture. And some of you are probably thinking, what's that? Yes, it is. Legally, it is defined as a fixture because it is attached to the wall. The wall is attached to the ground, and therefore it's a fixture. And if the TV was on it, the TV was attached to the mounting thing, which is attached to the wall, which is attached to the ground. Therefore, the TV is a fixture too. So that's why when you're listing a property, my goodness, you've got to be careful. Because there have been cases where a buyer saw this gorgeous television and thought that they were going to buy it. Now, a lot of people would think that, you're going to take your own TV away with them. But some buyers can be a pain in the butt, and they can take the seller to court about that because it is legally a fixture. So be very careful on your listing in the exclusions that you're excluding the wall mount and the TV that's on it. You have to be careful. This has gone to court. Any other questions? No one tells you this thing. You're not going to know. I'm sure they don't tell you that at Aria College. Well, it doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like I'm getting any other questions. But as I said before, you've got another question pops into your head, email webinars@trebnet.com, and one of us will be glad to answer your question. Okay. It's a sunny day now after a rather gloomy morning. I think I might go out and enjoy the day. I hope you do too. Oh, how about an electric fireplace? They're plugged in. So unless it's actually mounted into the wall, my mother had one of these things. I thought it was the tackiest damn thing I've ever seen, but she loved it. And it's just a plug-in. It just plugs into a wall. So it's not going to be a fixture. It is mobile. All right. Have a great afternoon, everybody. And take care. And one of these days, we might actually see each other in person. Bye-bye.